Hello and welcome to our session at Open Education, Designing MOOCs to Support Self-Directed Learning, or SDL. Instructors' perspectives in South America, down there, not here in North America. My colleagues Zixi and Xiaoying, Zheng, and myself are from Indiana University. Other colleagues on this study include Dr. Meina from Wayne State, my former advisee, and Dr. Tom Reynolds from National University. The context for this study. For the past decade, people have been interested in the impact that MOOCs have had, massive open online courses. They've expanded notions of blended and online learning and opened up access to learners that previously didn't have opportunities to learn from prominent people in universities around the world. So we're scaling up. And this is a global phenomenon that impacts everyone. But what's different here is that our study is looking at instructors' perspectives, not in North America, but in South America. And in particular, looking at how they foster an environment that learners can engage in and be more self-directed in their own success. There's a vast array of research in MOOCs and open education, most of it focusing on the student side or the instructional designer side. Not much of it looking at what the instructor is doing in particular, but there's new roles of instructors, new roles of students in these environments. There's also ambiguity about the impact of open educational resources, or OER. And so in this literature review, we talk about the fact that most MOOCs are in English, and therefore predominantly they're served or offered in English-speaking countries, not in South America. We have limited understanding of what's happening in other countries around the world for diverse learners of this planet who may have limited English-speaking and understanding capacities. And so how do these MOOCs get adopted for the Global South learners or those outside of English-speaking environments to a broader geographic climate, as my colleague George Felicianos talks about in his systematic review of the research here. And George expanded that study in 2016 and pointed out that only 0.5% of the research literature, so 0.005, is actually the literature in South America, and there's a need for that. My other colleague, Jaime Sanchez, in my book, MOOCs and Open Education Around the World, wrote a chapter about what's going on in Latin America. And many of the MOOCs that were offered there are cloud-based areas or learning analytics, gamification, really computer science and engineering related areas, where there's a chance maybe to excite people in and get large enrollments while getting them more engaged in inquiry-based forms of learning, or iMOOCs, to therefore reduce the dropout rates. So much has been done in South America, and not much has been done on the instructor side here, as you can see in the study from Dr. Meina in 2020. And most studies are really student-focused, design-focused, and somewhat context-focused. The research on instructors shows that there are huge challenges that instructors like me faced when I did a MOOC 10 or 11 years ago already. Technical changes, the people's computers might not work. Pedagogical challenges, because you want to engage all 3,000 or 10,000 or 30,000 or 300,000 learners in your MOOC. There's instructional design challenges, retention challenges, engagement challenges, and so forth and so on. Notably, instructional design ranks as the second most extensively studied, and that's not too surprising, but we need to look more at the instructors within instructional design approaches here. And so we're going to look at self-directed learning skills of students, the planning skills and self-assessment skills, because SDL, self-directed learning, is critical in this age of informal learning, this age of online, open education, distance education, which is pervasive and wraps around us on our mobile devices every day. We're always learning all the time. So we want to understand more about self-directing our learning process, as well as self-regulating what happens within specific episodes of one's learning. So Randy Garrison, my good friend up in Calgary, offered us a model, really a three-part model to understand SDL. In particular, in distance learning environments, today these be online and open and massive open online. Self-management, that refers to the ability of task control and goal setting and managing time and resources and support. Self-monitoring, reflectivity, thinking about your thinking, cognitive and metacognitive skills for goal setting, and deciding the learning pace. And then motivation, sustaining one's learning efforts towards specific learning and task-related goals.
So there has been a lot of research on the joint utilization of MOOCs and OER in the Global South area. However, there is still an ambiguity about the connections between MOOCs and OER. Addressing the differentiation between viewing open education in terms of open content and viewing it as an open and innovative pedagogy is really critical. The relationship between MOOCs and OER is not static. From an open resource perspective, many MOOCs neither support reuse or the adaptation of content, nor support innovation in learning experience. So many MOOCs are not OER. But from an open learning innovation perspective, MOOCs are regarded as a learning opportunity and environment that supports self-directed and collaborative learning. In effect, rather than a learning resource, it would mean that MOOCs extend beyond OER. Those discussions and research reports inform this study to examine the instructor's perspectives of the differences between MOOCs and OER and possibly their utilization of OER and MOOCs.
So we have 4 questions. The first three relate to Garrison's model. What strategies do MOOC instructors in South America use to facilitate self-management skills, the goal setting, the time management, resource management? What strategies do instructors use to support self-monitoring skills such as self-evaluation? And what strategies do instructors use to maintain learners' motivation? Finally, how do instructors perceive the relationship and integration of OER within MOOCs? So that's some general introduction here. Xiaoying is going to take us into the methodology section, and we'll be discussing the results as well. Xiaoying.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Bonk. In general, we used a qualitative method in order to fill in a research gap, as we mentioned before. And we also applied a convenience sampling, and we're glad to have 11 MOOCs instructors to participate in our individual interviews online through the Zoom. And we also applied a thematic analysis in order to analyze the data. And although the data analysis process is still ongoing, and based on the results of participants' recruitment, there are 366 MOOCs instructors from institutions in South America. They're from major MOOCs websites such as Coursera, edX, and FutureLearned. And then a bilingual survey in English and Spanish was distributed in order to adapt to the bilingual speakers in our participants. And the criteria for selecting these participants, they should have designed at least one MOOC. And there are 11 instructors accept our interview. And as you can see, the MOOCs offered in South American institutions can be seen from this table. There are 4 countries in total: Argentina, Brazil, Chile, and Colombia. And there are 3 platforms that mainly used. Participants' demographic information can be seen from this table. And Dr. Bob, would you like to add some comments?
And so you can see there are people who are teaching psychology, data science, economics, computer science. But what I will say is these were highly energized people. They were not frustrated by offering MOOCs. They were really excited and interested in how they could provide alternative learning opportunities for the citizens of their country or around the planet. And many were partnering with other instructors in Europe. So it's quite interesting. I recommend that if you're doing a study like this, and you'll get enlightened as to what's happening in South America or other parts of the world.
And we applied the semi-structured interview in order to collect as much information as we can. And the interview instrument was adapted from Dr. Zhu's study which investigate MOOCs to facilitate their students' self-directed learning based on Garrison's conceptual framework. And here are the samples of our interview questions. We covered their perceptions of the responsibility to facilitate their students' self-directed learning, and we covered their main 3 aspects of Garrison's framework. And after we recorded and transcribed the interviews, we conduct a thematic analysis with the software on Vivo. And for now, the data analysis is still ongoing, but we could present some tentative findings in the following.
So the first key finding regarding to self-management is that we found the most common way to support self-management is breaking down a long video, such as 30 minutes into short videos. For example, as you can see, 2 of the participants both said when the videos are long for 20 or 30 minutes, it's hard to keep students motivated to finish each videos. And the second key finding is that many participants in this study did not actively engage in facilitating goal-setting process for students. Instead, those instructors advocate that students should take their responsibility for this task. Approximately a half of the participants emphasized that the significance of articulating explicit learning objectives to ensure students have a clear understanding of expectations and receive proper instructional guidance. For example, one of the participants said he didn't design MOOCs with goal setting in mind because students hardly want to go beyond the core class requirement. And for self-monitoring, the key finding is that reflection questions, progress bar that shows completion, quizzes, and peer-to-peer evaluations, as well as forums, are critical design considerations that MOOCs instructors made to facilitate self-monitoring. In regard of motivation, about half of the interviewees mentioned that they make effort to motivate students by designing interactive elements, such as peer-to-peer interaction, pop-out quizzes in the video, but gamification features are very limited. For example, one of the participants said they started like, okay, did you know that? And you need to click the answer in order to let the feedback pop out. And then to get more information, they made it definitely more interactive than just reading a book or an article. And in terms of the relationship between OER and MOOCs, we found out that almost all the interviewees give examples of how they integrate OER in their MOOCs. The majority added copyright-free material in their MOOCs because they believe students should not pay for such education, and Coursera also require instructors to do so. Some of the instructors create OER by themselves to allow students to freely reuse and remix material, provided and even avoid disputes of plagiarism. One of the instructors said, I have to follow Coursera policies. So most of the resources that we use, they need to be open because of the copyright issue and distribution issue and things like that. So I use a lot of open access papers when I have to point students to those scientific papers, and I also use a lot of open access books, especially online books. Here is another code. If you are interested in, please pause and read. There are some limitations of this study. Firstly, convenient sampling was used. In that case, almost half of the participants we can access to are from Colombia, and the other half from Argentina, Brazil, and Chile, and we have 2 female participants and 9 male participants. Also, there is a self-selection bias, as well as we only have 1 single data source. And in the future study, we would like to expand to more additional data and methodologies. The research is very significant to contribute to the field of academia. For example, as we mentioned, the previous research on MOOCs in South America has primarily used quantitative research approach. And the majority of MOOCs research has highly focused on students' learning, neglects the importance of designing MOOCs is a challenge for instructors due to the massiveness and openness of MOOCs. And there is also a ambiguity of the connection between MOOCs and OER that need to get further investigation. We believe our findings contribute to our understanding of how MOOCs and OER has a dynamic relationship between each other and how OER can be integrated into MOOCs to facilitate more equity learning. And in the practice, we believe MOOCs instructors, through our findings, are able to find insights to design MOOCs with more SDL consideration, and also provide the institution leaders with the insight of how to carry on MOOCs project, especially providing professional development support for the instructors. Our insights can impact the design of delivery of the courses that actually affect millions of students in the practice. Thank you so much for listening. Please contact us if you have further questions.
Good luck to everyone.